campus. Lyndon there helped to coordinate the exhibit. Come here to Lyndon and to put together the program for both today and tomorrow. So if people are interested in continuing the discussion, we're having another program tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the Vermont room. I had heard about the I Am Vermont Too project before it started from a woman called Sheila Lyndon down in Brattleboro almost 2 years ago. And the minute I heard about it, I said, we need to get this to Lyndon. So I'm very grateful and pleased that we're able to have this exhibit here at the college through the party before Thanksgiving. So if you have friends and colleagues who are interested in this, I encourage you to invite them to come out to see the exhibit, which will be available through them. So for panelists, we have a mic if you need one. And Chad, I'll turn this over to you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
My name is Sharon Moulier, and I am the co-coordinator of the I Am Vermont Too. It's a project out of the Root Social Justice Center that's down in Brattleboro. So I sort of cover the north. This is the south. On behalf of I Am Vermont Too, I would like to thank Lyndon Fair for sponsoring us, as well as the Lyndon Lecture Art Committee. Thank you very much. As a result of this partnership, an entity came about, LSE Soul, and so I would also like to thank them. I believe you have all the information that's out there around this project. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. Before they do that, we have this exhibit at Johnson State College, and looking at that you're merging that now we're having the exhibit here at Lyndon State. Personally, this has been a labor of love, and the whole spectrum of love, from challenges to joy. And one of the joys was the many students of color who stopped by and talked to us while we were putting up the exhibit. Another joy is getting to talk to these panelists of color. One of the goals, there are many goals of I Am Vermont Too project, but one of the goals is to get us out of our silos, us meaning people of color, how to network and how to support each other. We're just going into the colleges, we've already started that process. And so I'm again grateful for Lyndon State and all their efforts. And why don't we, are you going to starting? Okay. So the panelists will introduce themselves, they'll give you their names and some other information. And then that's the process, each will do that, and then afterwards we'll open it up for discussion.
I'm Michaela, and I'm half white and half black, I guess. And I was born in Boston with my mom and my dad, who were in their late 20s. And my mom is white, my dad is black. And eventually my mom and my dad had separated, and my mom moved me to a more white community in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And I was literally the only black person that went to school there. And I chose Lyndon because my mom has a lot of kids, so she can't afford to pay for all 5 of us. So I had to find the cheapest place for me, and that happened to be here.
What are your aspirations? What do you study here?
I study music business, and I'm interested in like the promotion and production and management of like artists and venues and stuff like that.
And you mentioned you chose Lyndon for family. Was there any other reasons why you chose college?
I think I chose it because I hadn't really left Massachusetts that much, so I didn't really understand like anything outside of Massachusetts and like that small like white community that I was in. And
So how about sharing, if you feel comfortable, a microaggression that you may have experienced since you've been in Vermont?
Well, in Vermont, I got, oh, you're half black, because I sometimes don't look it. So I think that was kind of frustrating at the same time, because, I mean, I am, but you can't really tell. But just for someone to come out and ask me that, it's a little like, okay, well, whatever. But, I don't know.
And if you were to have members of our community, what would you like to say to them in regards to making your experience as best as it could be here?
I would just say be like a little bit more open-minded to, you know, someone that maybe might not necessarily look black, but they might, like, just because they are actually darker, that doesn't mean that they're not, that they're just strictly white, if that makes sense.
I'm Margie Woods. I'm a grad student here at Lyndon, and I'm getting a master's degree in education. I'm from an extremely diverse area. I grew up in Southern Virginia, where the population is around 45,000 people, so I had a really strong sense of community there, and if I did run into instances of racial microaggressions and sometimes even macroaggressions, I had that space I could go into where I could talk to people who understood what I was feeling and help me process that. And one of the things I noticed when I moved here is I didn't have that support. The best thing I could do was call my mom back home and talk about it. And there's a feeling that comes with that, with having to process it on your own. I ran into a little bit of guilt. I ran into a little bit of sadness that I was affected by that, like growing up in the South and encountering racism. I was upset that coming here and dealing with it, I didn't have a thicker skin about it. So I've sort of carried that with me, and I think this exhibit is helping me deconstruct that and sort of understand where those thought patterns are coming from. My interests, and I've kind of explored that in moving up here and going through some of these experiences. I am really passionate about education, but I'm finding myself moving into a vein of tying in social justice and inclusivity into the curriculum, especially in the Northeast Kingdom where it is predominantly white, and where we're finding out, you know, there are students who are the only black student in their school or the only black student in their community, and the curriculum doesn't reflect who they are, what their experiences might be. So I'm finding myself venturing down that path, and we'll see how it turns out. Another thing that has sort of come as an outcropping from this is I am helping facilitate a group here. It's called LSC Soul. Sean mentioned it earlier, and it's an acronym. It stands for Lyndon Students of Color Support, Organize, Uplift, and Love. And so the purpose of the group is to provide a space for students of color to come together and to find that support system that I felt I didn't have when I first moved here. I want students here to feel that they have people who they can come to and feel affirmed and feel visible. It is an open group. It's open to people who identify as people of color and people who do not. I believe that by making it more open, we can have people who are interested in learning more and doing better and being more careful and intentional in the way they interact with people of color. I want it to be a space where they feel comfortable to do that. Yeah, I'm looking down the list. The reason I chose Lyndon, my husband is from Vermont. He's from the Northeast Kingdom, and he is a graduate of Lyndon State College. His mother is a former faculty member here. His brother graduated from Lyndon State College, so I was very familiar with Lyndon State College when I came. And one of the first names I heard was Pat Shine, and she is someone who I think is a pillar in the community in terms of social justice and embracing diversity. So I came here, and it was like a beeline right to her office. I was lucky enough to meet her even before I became a student. So yeah, and I think I was drawn to this community because there is a spirit of wanting to learn more and wanting to embrace different cultures and this progressiveness that I really connected with. I think that one of the things the community could do to to be more embracing is to have spaces like what we're doing with with LSE Soul, where people can come in and feel affirmed and see representation of their perspectives. And I think there's some other things happening. This is a year of awareness, and organizations like Lyndon Fair, who are really driving that message of including all those different stories and creating a place for people to express all that. So I'm excited to plug in where I can. I'm excited about what we're going to do with the group. And I think the last thing I have to do is share an example of a microaggression. I'll try to get through this without getting emotional, but it's astounding to me the things people will say to children. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and she is biracial. And some of the most hurtful things I've heard in this community have been said to her, and either it's a way to objectify her or to say something anti-Black that I feel targeted by. For example, we'll be in the grocery store, and I'll be holding her, and a woman came up and told her that she was just the right complexion, she's not too dark. And, you know, my little baby, she doesn't understand. I hope she doesn't understand. I pray she doesn't understand. But as a parent, I had a vision of how I would usher her into this understanding of who she was and her race. And to hear how kids can be inundated with negative messages about who people are just based on the color of their skin is shocking to me. And it's upsetting too, because I want to keep her in this bubble where, you know, we believe everyone is beautiful. There's so many beautiful shades of skin. I teach her, mommy's brown, dad is peach. We're not talking about black and white, because it's so much more than that. The world is so much more colorful than that. But in the grocery store, I find myself sort of holding my breath and holding her tight when people come up and they say, you know, your daughter's so cute, because I'm just sort of waiting for the next thing to come out, where it's a comment about the texture of her hair or the complexion of her skin, or you're so lucky your hair didn't come out nappier than that, you're so lucky your hair didn't come out any kinkier than that, things like that. It's almost constant, and so, yeah, it's heavy, and I'm really hoping that these conversations can help lessen that, because I don't want that to be her legacy. I don't want that to be her experience growing up in this community. So we've got to do better.
You got this. My name is Omabi. I was born in Burma, and I grew up in Thailand refugee camp. And I came to the United States in 2011, and I could graduate from university, but now I live in Burlington. So yeah. What were we saying? The reason why I chose Lyndon is when I was applying colleges, Lyndon was the only one that I liked, and then one of my teacher was telling me how Lyndon is great and they need more diverse students, so I chose Lyndon for that. And it also is not a lot of money, you know. And the first semester I was studying education because I want to be a teacher. And now I'm studying, I changed my major the end of the second semester, I think, to human service psychology, because I always want to help people. So I think it's a good major for me. So when I came to the United States, when I was in Winooski, people, like a lot of boys, American or white, you can call whatever, they were very mean to me. They said, go back to your country, I don't like people like you. And so I started crying. And I was very scared, nervous all the time, and I don't really talk to people. So in my freshman in high school, I started talking to people. I play sports, so that's how I got more comfortable talking to people. And I would like to say that everyone is different, but people usually ask me, do you speak Asian? Or what's the thing on your head? And also like sometimes when I go out of like state, like where there's not a lot of people like us, they think like people on terrace, you know, they give me a weird look and stuff like that. It's so comfortable, you know. And like a lot like people like us, like different color, different religion, like we all the same. Like we all human. Like sometimes it's really irritating when people say, "Go back to your country." It's sad too, you know. Like I don't know. I want to say so much, but I will end it like this.
Hello, my name is Alicia Davis. I'm originally from Panama City, Florida. I lived there until I was 14. Living in Florida was, especially in Panama City, was very different compared to here because there was things like more public transportation, more like grocery stores like right around the corner from your house. Different people of every different color everywhere. So like when I lived in Florida, I never saw color like at all because that's what I grew up in. I saw black people, I saw white people, I saw every different color, even in schools, grocery stores, everywhere. So when I came here, I found myself like every time I saw a black person, I'm like, oh my God, there's a black person. Or I want to go talk to them, I want to get to know them because you rarely see that around here. And like when I went to St. Johnsbury, like middle school, my little brothers and my little sisters were like some of the only black kids there. So it was like kind of difficult. My little brother was getting like bullied sometimes, getting called like the N-word and stuff like that by these two specific little kids that I won't mention. I chose to come to Lyndon State. Like I'm not gonna lie, it was my second option. I was gonna go to a school in Ohio, but I noticed like I literally had no family there, like no relatives, so that was too far away. So I decided to come here. And I have an aunt that works here in Academic Support Center, so she helps me out a lot, and it just feels more comfortable, feels like home. My major is psychology and human services. So one microaggression that like I've experienced, this is gonna be a little awkward, but so I was walking to like a soccer game with my friend in high school, and she asked me, she was like, I have a question for you, and I'm like, all right, what's the question? She's like, are your nipples black? And I'm looking at her like, what other color would they be? Like, let me know. So that was kind of an awkward question to get. I'm not even gonna lie, like when I lived in Florida, I had more racist experience from black people because I have darker skin. So black people were like calling me names like when I lived in Florida, I don't think I ever experienced a white person or a person of any other color be racist to me besides black people. And when I moved up here, I never, besides a couple times, like people saying little things to me, I never really experienced racism. But in Florida, like there are more black racist people, racist towards their own race because they have darker skin. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. But yeah, that's about it.
Is there something you wanted to share about your experience more fulfilling here at the school?
I don't know. I've had a good experience here at Lyndon so far. Just be mindful of, I know some people are curious, but be mindful of how you ask the question because, I don't know, like sometimes the questions you ask, you're curious, but you gotta be careful of how you ask certain people certain questions. So yeah, that's maybe one thing I would say.
Hi, my name is Andre Easton Jr. I am a recent graduate of the Psychology Human Services Department, and I'm currently pursuing my second degree in criminal justice. I'm also a student athlete of this institution, and this is my 4th year at Lyndon. I chose Lyndon, well, I transferred to Lyndon. I went to 2 previous, one was a university and one was a school before here in Connecticut. And I came to Lyndon because they offered me a second chance to play baseball and earn a degree at, an affordable rate. And I've never been to Vermont before I came here. Connecticut, I'm from Waterbury, Connecticut. It's very different. So when I got here, it was a bit of a culture shock to be here and not necessarily know the other people that were like me up here. And yeah, it was a lot to handle at first, and I had a few, rough patches my first year here. But I can say overall that since I've been here, I like to think that this place has changed me for the better in multiple ways. But I would say the most is advocating for myself and people who are similar to me. It's not that before I got here I wouldn't have done that, but being here has taught me how to do it in a more appropriate way. As mostly everybody here said, they've dealt with some sort of struggle or some sort of thing that confused them or flustered them since they've been here. I have as well. I have numerous incidents. If I had to pick one that was the most eye-opening for me, it was probably definitely my first year here. A couple of me and my friends went out, and then we went to a gas station after to get some food, and there was like 3 or 4 pickup trucks parked on the side and a whole bunch of people hanging out, and we weren't really over there. We went inside, got our food, and came out, and all those dudes were yelling stuff or whatever, and we weren't really paying them no attention until somebody said the wrong thing, and then it stood out, and everybody looked like, whoa, what did you just say? And then a couple of my friends started heading over there, and I was still kind of hanging back to scope the situation out, but just the aggression and like the vulgarness in like those people's voices when they were talking to us, and you can clearly tell they had no idea what they were talking about. They were just saying it to be hateful. I think like that stood out to me and let me know like, okay, you're not home anymore. This place is different. Like, and that's not to say that everybody here is bad, because I've met some great people since I've been here, but I would, to Alicia's point, I would just say people have to be more informed about how they're going to go into something before they do it. Because some people do have good intentions, and it's just misinformation that leads them to, not necessarily act that out the correct way. My career aspirations are to, once I finish here, go to graduate school, eventually earn an MSW or something in a related field, and then open my own practice where I can help people, because, that is pretty much what I look forward to in my career.
So thank you all. I just want to make a little clarification, maybe add on. Lisa had mentioned feeling racism toward from other people of color, and the definition I use of racism is a system of advantage. And being that black folks don't have that advantage, we don't have the power, but we can be as prejudiced, we can be as colorist, and a lot of that comes from whether it's economics, whether it is from the plantation. You might have better advantage being lighter skin. When I was a kid, and I've heard it even on Oprah, when some of the darker members of our community, when some of the lighter members would be yelling at them because of their darkness, they would be singing back, the sweeter, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. And so it is another way of looking at how we can internalize that oppression, how that we can take on what the dominant society has said of us and not break out. So wanting to, not to say we're not prejudiced against each other, we are, just as we have issues around income, we have issues around gender identification. We are as a multi-faceted community as anyone else here. So before we open it up, I just wanted to say that, and I was going to say it earlier, I first met Margie at Head Start when I was working as an outreach literacy coordinator for the Anthonyum. And When I walked into the Head Start, it was, we did this almost shocked to see each other. Because I don't see, I've lived here for almost 34 years next month. And I don't see myself. I am usually the only person of color in the room. And so to walk in a space and see her, and we looked at each other and like amazement and hugged. And I had the pleasure of seeing her there and had the pleasure of working with her for this project. Hope you stay in Vermont, because that is an issue. People come to Vermont, people of color come to Vermont, and they don't stay. We have a member who is helping us with this project, and her future has changed. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we open it up? So I'll use the mic. Questions? Comments?
I'm a little curious about feedback from you about black colleges. You know, I've read that a lot of predominantly black colleges that were founded a long time ago are suffering in terms of enrollment and gifts and so on. Didn't know if any of you have a comment or observation.
So I guess you're asking them to make a, I'm not quite sure, a comment on black colleges in what aspect? Like,
their perspective. I just read it in the news and commentary, and so since these students chose Lyndon State, or or just their own observation, or their stronger knowledge than what I have, or they might say, no thanks.
Sure. I came from an area where HBCUs are pretty popular. I did not choose to go to a historically black college or university, and we could dissect that a little bit. I think I succumbed to a lot of pressure from the white people around me. In a lot of my classes, I was the only black student. That launches into a whole other conversation about representation in some of the advanced level classes that students take, and what percentage of the student body is, representing a diverse ethnic group. Excuse me. But I grew up around a lot of white people. I had a lot of white friends. I had a lot of white classmates, and so that never really stuck out to me as something I would want to pursue. I don't know how that ties into the conversation about funding, but I think that the start of HBCUs, if we look at it, the history of it is they were started out of necessity. And I don't know. That's about I'm grinding my gears. I don't know, but yeah, that my personal decision to not go is because I didn't feel like there was a positive perception of HBCUs in my community, and I felt like by doing that, I was somehow betraying the white people who had allowed me to enter their circle. So that's just my honesty. I can't speak on behalf of other people.
Hi, my name is Lynn Wurzberg. I want to thank you guys for doing this, and I think it's great when college students teach each other and teach us. Just put your time into doing this kind of thing. I was a graduate here in 1981, longer ago than I want to remember. I can't remember any students of color on campus, so it's great to see diversity happening. And unfortunately, I have to leave, so I can't stay for the rest of the discussion, but I'm just glad to see you guys are trying to educate people and putting like those posters with concrete examples of what the kind of comments people make, it really like is instructive. And almost, I think you could go to the point of like saying, well, here's an example of how it should be said, you know, like, because some of it, when people say stuff, is they might mean well or not know how to break the ice, or they're just purely ignorant. They're not necessarily being, you know, using aggression. But I think, you know, people just need to be taught. You know, it's a new world opening up with trying. I think the ice is broken in some more ways than it has been, but I just totally believe education is the way to go. So thank you guys for doing this, and keep doing it.
Did I see a hand over here?
Oh, I don't need my face up. Thank you all. Absolutely, this is fabulous. Appreciate it. I guess my general question is just what has this I Am Vermont Too project meant to you, and whatever level you participated in it, from being the organizer to having being a part of the exhibit or just being here today? What has that been for you?
I just think it's a good thing to have on or at LSC campus, because I don't know, like, I feel like a lot of people here aren't really educated about people. Maybe, I mean, some might be, some might not, but people of color. And I've been to one meeting and this, so I haven't really gotten to know like the group well, but I look forward to being in this group and just educating people about the situation.
I think that this is great, and I really wish I was here when I was a freshman, not when I'm about to leave. But I think that this definitely could be important because I'm noticing that the school, like, as I've gotten like closer and closer to my graduation, I've noticed more and more diversity coming in, and I think that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I think this is great. I haven't been to a meeting yet, but I will. But you guys always have it when I have class.
I think this is a good idea to teach people, because like through back the time, like people don't know where, people always want to know, but they don't know how to ask those questions in a nice way. So right now, like when we do a project like this, like it stand out, and I feel like it made more sense to people, and like I don't know, like I always wanted, like, if people want to know about me or where I'm from and all those stuff, I can tell them. It's like, I don't want them to guess, or like, back in high school, people used to ask me, they guessing that I'm Somali, so they asked me, do I have a hair? I have a hair, of course. They asked me, is my hair still fake? And they asked me like that, so I just don't want people to guess me. If you want to know about me, come ask me. Yeah. I'm always willing to tell people about my life story.
This has been a great way for me to connect with other students of color on campus. My first semester here, I just sort of did a walk around to see who's here, what's the feeling. I saw maybe 2, 3 other students of color, and you know, everyone's on their way somewhere, so it's just like, hi, and they're going. But through this, coordinating this and setting up the soul group and really dedicating time and energy to outreach, I've connected with so many students from so many different backgrounds, and I don't think that would have happened otherwise. And I don't know if anyone else noticed this as you look through the pictures from the I Am Vermont Too exhibit and the Lyndon student exhibit, just seeing the overlap in some of the comments made. For me, that's what kind of knocked the wind out of me. It's like, oh wow, it's not just me. You sort of go through that when you're processing, am I just reading too far into this? Am I just taking it personally? But then you see there are other people who have had almost the same exact thing said to them over and over and over. on one hand affirms your feelings and it makes it like, it's okay that this hurt my feelings, it's okay that I need to step back and deal with this, but then to also be able to connect with people and say, we're going to be okay, I have your back, and we have a support system here. So I'm grateful for everything this has done.
And I'll say for me, it has been comforting and inspiring. I really had the pleasure of going to different places, talking to various youth. And as you said, the tragedy is the overlap. You know, you'll hear a 7-year-old who'll say, don't touch my hair, and here is a big thing. And then the same thing will come from a 30 or 40-year-old. I think the other part of it is how isolated people are. And Margie spoke to this, the things that we need to do to adapt. And that many times they are unconscious. So in order to adapt, whether you're adapting for financial needs, whether you're adapting for social needs, in order to get through the day, in a sense you have to seal off part of yourself in order to survive. And being able to make these connections, when people see the photos and they see how others in the other parts of the state are feeling the same way, because you wouldn't know it. There aren't that many venues. We have a People of Color Caucus, hopefully as we're getting more and more members, to make a statement, to make us visible. So one of the goals is we are visible. If you see our photos were at the State House, our representatives, here we are. We are your constituents. You've heard their experiences. Our experiences are usually not validated. When you hear someone say, I have to hear something over and over, that means the first time they experienced, they didn't feel valid. And why is that? You know, how do we get validated? It's from our outside community. And then the other thing, which I think is most crucial, because this is what costs Vermont, that you don't see our value. You don't see what we bring to this state. You don't see what we bring to this state economically. And because of that, there hasn't been what's needed to make us want to stay. There are efforts throughout the state from businesses, state agencies, around colleges, around recruitment, and people do not stay. We are not valued. We're not valued economically. We see our culture appropriated. What is it for the African student to see African dads, but they're all white people? Imagine what they're feeling, especially with the history that we have with Africa. So this project is twofold. The first thing is to connect people of color in Vermont. Because without that, we wither. If you think of a tree, we're withering on the vine. So right now, we're looking at this project as we're nurturing the soil. Okay? The soil has roots. What is needed to have that plant grow in a healthy environment? And that's the charge to you. That's the charge to the dominant society. What can you provide that we blossom? Because then we are truly seen, validated, and valued.
So as a wife and mother of family of non-white people of color, so everyone in my family except me, I might need it for the TV. But as a mom, it hurts so much to hear your stories, because some of the things that my kids won't bring home to me that have happened to them. It's bad enough the ones that they do bring home, but the ones that they, that they don't bring home, what haven't they said? And Marjorie, St. J. Academy needs some teachers of color, because I'm telling you, to have maybe one teacher, two teachers that are not white in the whole school, and you almost hope that you could, and it's too late for my son, but for my youngest, but if we could do something like this in the high schools, because these kids are even more vulnerable. They're the ones that are withering and dying, and they're leaving the state because, and my kids have all left, except we're going to Burlington, but because they don't see themselves here, and that hurts, because I grew up here, But thank you so much.
How to phrase this. I think one of the things that so struck me is that this has given a voice to a group of people and helped people find each other. But I also feel uncomfortable with the idea that the people who are that people who are in a minority are always having the burden on them to educate everyone else. And on one hand, I feel like it must be empowering to get to tell your story and feel validated, but I also feel like I want to know what we can do to take the burden off of you all the time, right? And of course, like, we all have many identities, but I feel like just sort of as a white person who wants to be an ally, I can educate myself and try and, call other people out when I hear it, but, are there things that we can do to sort of make it less of a burden on you to make sure people are being aware, I guess? I don't know. Does that make sense?
So as I had said earlier, starting with educating yourself, starting with really acknowledging there's an issue, there is a problem, you're part of the problem. Look for the resources that you're willing to pay to be taught, as opposed to, which I've had right at this institution. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, a teacher thought that she could learn about blacks from her students, and thought that that was an okay thing to say at a meeting, at a school meeting, not understanding how inappropriate that is. So what are the resources that you have? Do you have the money behind it? Are you willing to put in the work? This is not I did that workshop and I'm gone. I think about it as people who have spiritual practices, that it's an ongoing, evolving process. So just as we're learning, I came up to Vermont naive. I have suffered, I'm continuing to suffer. My 3 grandsons are suffering. I didn't know. I really didn't. And I'm talking to more and more people who are leaving based on the same things. So it is identifying, get the truths out. What's happening today? Get to see from hearing from people of color a whole bunch, not just one. Seeing the part that you play. We talk about bringing them in schools. Our curriculum is not all that great. having my 9-year-old grandson read Huckleberry Finn to me over the phone, because that's what they did in school, was not great. So how do you nurture and support teachers in a system where what they're teaching is a macroaggression? How do you talk to your community agencies that are serving us? How informed are your spiritual houses? So there are entities. Tomorrow I will be doing a workshop. I'll do a plug right now. It's part of a job, and so we're not having a casual conversation. It's a job of training. So that when you see someone on the street, that you can talk to them as an individual. And even as we talk, we talk about our ignorance. This is a curious time around sexual harassment and assault with women. And so what I say to the women in the room, what would you say as if a man, when you were trying to interact with a man and he kept offending you? He kept belittling you. How would you respond to that if you were a feminist? So we have some answers. Might take a little digging, but I think it's possible. There is a group, Northeast Kingdom Allies for Racial Justice. We are trying to become more than a Facebook page and actually start to do some relevant work in the community. I think we're getting probably close to our time, so I wanted to see if there were any more questions, and then if not, maybe a parting word or two from our panelists.
I don't need a microphone. So here's something that I'm interested in. So as a white student who's informing myself, educating myself a lot of the times, not necessarily any longer, but I hear racial slurs, stereotypes, against people of color. And obviously a little long ago, I would say nothing. And I'm still trying to find my voice too, where it's just like, this is the place and time to actually educate this person. How can I contribute here? So that's me as a white person, but you specifically, as students of color, how do you inform other students of color who are being prejudiced against their own color, being stereotypical about themselves, making jokes? Is it easier for you to find your voice within your friendship and say, like, no, that's wrong, this is why? My question.
Can you repeat your question like one more? And you said Audrey has practice and has to go, and Carol, thank you, she also had a class to go to. So it's not you.
It's a long question, I know, that's very simple. So just as a person of color, if you're interacting with your other friends of color, and they're making just like racial slurs, either about you or just their own color in general, being stereotypical about themselves, is it hard for you to say, like, no, this is wrong, this is why? Is it easier for you to inform your other students of color? And then compared to maybe even white students, who are also behaving the same way.
Usually, since I'm a darker skin color, and when I'm hanging out with my other friends of color, that's probably one of the first things that they notice. I have darker skin than they do. Like, even within some of my family members, they say like harsh things to me. Like, I've had things said like from my grandmother, from my mother, to siblings about my skin color. So I totally forgot where I was going with that. That's probably the main thing that gets to me. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, like, when I'm hanging out with people of color, I just sometimes we do make those, like, you know, racial slur jokes because, I don't know, I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know if I should say that, never mind. I don't know, that's just me, like when I'm, like I said, I've experienced more racist interaction towards Black people. It's because like my skin is darker, but.
Maybe you could answer it differently, like that's going on. In your head, what are you saying? Why doesn't somebody say, well, the idea of it, instead of how you might respond, I'm curious, in your head, you're thinking, what's going on here? Why doesn't somebody speak up? Do you think that sometimes, instead of having to defend yourself or be the one to correct a rude comment?
So, and I'm wondering again, you know, like with your question, and I don't want to speak for you, but I would just say they're in a process. It's a process. The fact that they're up here right now talking to you, they should be applauded. Perhaps that could be a topic at LSC Soul, that we could bring that up. But that, yeah, that's, I'm thinking with that question that, yeah, that's, yeah.
Well, I have an answer for you. So since I went to university, there's a lot of diverse students, right, from other country. When I hang out with them, like when I start doing soccer, like when I start playing soccer, like when we have a away game or something, I have a group of friends that are Black and a group of friends that are white, and I'm the only Asian in the whole bus. So the Black girl always turning out, you know, he play loud music, and a white girl put a headphone on, and they get mad at them, like they start arguing about stuff. And I'm an Asian, so like I don't know what I'm supposed to do. When I became a captain, I said that I speak up. Finally, I speak up. I said, let me be honest with you guys. I'm not like in either side. I'm friends with everyone. So like, I know that sometimes you guys are being too much. I said that to those Black girls that I know. And you guys, if you want to like say something, don't say behind them, so they don't know what they're doing wrong. You know, just speak up and talk to them. Sometimes it's just communication, you know, between those people. And I started getting used to everyone around me, you know. And I remember, it was someone question I remember, I think it was that one was sitting there. I remember like when I was in the first year in the United States, it's a couple of weeks of living here. I helped this woman, she was carrying a lot of stuff, and she's white. I want to go ask her for help, like if she need help. I couldn't, like, you know, I was kind of nervous and scared, like how am I going to help her when I don't speak the language, you know. But again, I just used my hand structure, she understand. And I was like, she kind of gave me a look. She thinks probably she don't trust me because I look different or something like that. That again, I see her every day in the same, like the same, she was carrying the same stuff. So I asked her, finally we get close. Sometimes I just want to tell you guys, sometimes you have to open your heart and give hand to those who help, you know, need it and help, like, so help them. Yeah, that's it.
So it is time. Do you want to say a parting word or two?
First off, I'm so happy to have every one of you here, and I'm so happy that you participated in the conversation, and I hope you took something away from this about, you know, being intentional with our language, thinking about the impact our words have on the people we are interacting with. I thank you for listening to our stories and considering our perspective, and I do hope you carry this out into your respective communities and share our story with other people. We do have LSC Soul happening. It's the first Thursday every month. It's for Lyndon students. So if you have any students of color in your life who find themselves on this campus who are interested in the college, I'm hoping that even after I go, this is something that continues on well after me. So hopefully it'll still be thriving, and we'll have that network going. So like I said, send people our way. I'm hoping that we can continue these conversations throughout the year and look for other ways to give people space to tell their stories. Again, just thank you for coming, and I think everyone for participating. What's left of our panel, I think you guys please let the others know that I thank them as well in their absence. And yeah, I'm excited about what we can do. It's trying times right now. We're at trying times, and any way we can edify one another, I think that's the takeaway here, is using our words and our actions to lift each other up.
I just want to say thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to what we have to say. I don't know, some like people that come here might say that why they have to share their story, and I just want to say that like I'm sure that every of you guys are facing like something different too. Not even though we look different, we have struggle in our lifetime, right? It's just, I don't know. If you want to share your story, I'm here to listen too.
Thank you guys for coming out. Really appreciate it and taking the time to listen to our stories. Thank you.
And I want to echo everything that they said. Thank you. Thank you, panelists that are here. Look forward to working with you in LSC Seoul. And thank you all. Appreciate you coming and